Hello and welcome to another video about making digital assets. So this video I want to talk about making a bit more structure in the menu and cleaning up the menu. So if you followed previous videos, we have a menu that looks like this, which has a lot of different parameters and values. We want to just clean this up and make this look better. So we're just gonna here select our assets and open our properties to start with. So what are some useful ways of cleaning this up? So here on the side, if we look at our parameters, we have something which is called a folder. So if I would place a folder in here and press apply, we have a folder here at the bottom. So let's say I want to place some values in here. For example, here I have some parameters that change the blank style and so on. So I'm going to grab them all and drop them in here. So if I press apply now, we have them all now in a folder. And I can also now quickly move up this folder, for example, all the way up here. So this is then my base setting. We can also now give this a better name. So blank settings. We can also, of course, have folders in folders. So I can take another one, I can drag it in here, and I can have a folder inside a folder. So let's say this folder controls the scale values. And now I can grab my scale here and place that in the scale folder. So pressing apply, and you can see now I have a specific folder here for scaling. And this is how we could start building up these things. So we could again do one, for example, for the rotation. So create a folder, rotation, and I'm going to grab my rotation value. And press apply, and we would now here see them as tabs. So we create a tab here. Now furthermore, also my ramp can be part of the scale setting. And our seed value can, for example, be one of the top settings here, because if you want to quickly change how the model looks, we can just play around here with that seed. So this is a quick way of structuring what's going on here. Now, what is interesting in folders is we can have different types. So here we have a couple types. So currently we have tabs. As you can see, we can have tabs of different folders. So the more folders I place, the more tabs they will stack up here next to each other. If we change this to a collapsible menu and press apply here, we have a collapsible folder. So we only see this, and as soon as I click on the plus icon, we then actually open all the parameters. Another type is the simple folder. So if I press apply, it will just basically mark a small line around all the parameters inside there. So this folder is not like the tab menu. So if I would place another folder here and I press apply, it will not stack like a tab menu, it will just be placed underneath there. So that can be interesting. So for example, my scale could be a simple menu and my rotation could be a simple menu as well, and press apply. So now instead of tabs, I have them nicely here under each other. Now let's talk a bit about the other ones. We also have radio buttons. So here we have a radio button. Can do some interesting things with those as well. So you can see that there is a dot on that folder, and we can actually get a value to know if we are actually clicking or are inside on this folder. Then we also have some interesting other ones like import block or the multi-parameter ones. Those are a bit more advanced and I won't be covering them in this video. For most of the time when you build a basic structure, you will use the first three options here. So in this case, I'm going to keep my main folder blank settings as a tab, and I'm going to keep the other ones here as simple. So for example, I can create now a folder that says color, and I can grab my color in here and press apply. So now I have a specific tab for my settings of my blanks. And if I want to color my model, I can switch here to color mode and I don't have to worry about seeing other parameters. So that's a bit about basic folder structures and creation here. What we can also do is, for example, use a label. So here we have, for example, the label, and this is just a way of adding text here. So if I would type in here like fence tool and press apply, we then have here this text fence tool. We can also add here, like I said, labels. So we can add multiple text versions. So we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, press apply. So you can see like we have that as text here available. This can be useful if you want to have a certain naming or maybe a certain tip or certain way of an instruction on how to use a certain tool. It could be useful to like guide people a bit with some small text here and there. Another way of creating more structure is using the separator. So let's say I want to separate values from each other. So I'm going to place it between there and press apply. We now have a line in between them. So we can use that a bit to clean up this area. So for example, the way the values are saved here, so the way they are organized here are still not that great. So I have my seed value, my amount, my scale, the width, the bevel, and the style. So for example, we could, for example, say that the separator needs to be here. So my seed is a bit separated. Then my scale could be part of this here, my scale. The width of the plank is also a form of a scale, so let's put that in here as well. And then we can grab here the style, and we can, for example, do another separator for the bevel and press apply. So we could make a menu, for example, like this. So we sort of like have a small structure between these values. So now I've sort of cleaned up my parameter a bit. And again, I can also use, for example, here, a separator here to make sure that these are sort of like basic scale values, and these are a bit more advanced to control how far the min-max should go. So those are 3 ways to structure your interface. So using folders, using a separator, and using labels. Now, something else that I quickly want to touch on is using the function here to hide parameters. So here we have an option to hide and disable parameters. So for example, if I would go into my network here and I go to my the crooked plank where I used the point shooter, if I would now expose, for example, the scale or the amount of intensity that is deforming the shape, and I will place it here. So let's call it deform amount and press apply. So now I have this slider to deform the shape. So let's also probably set the range a bit lower. So now I have here the slider to deform, but this only works when I'm actually in the crooked plank. So you can see this will only work when I'm in here. So technically when I'm in a other style, I would like to hide or disable this value. So that is why we have the hide and disable option here. So what we can say is that we can look at our value from the plank style, which can be 1, which can be 0, 1, or 2. And what I would like to have is that if this value is 1, I would like to see my deform amount. If the value is not equal to 1, we can just hide or disable the deform amount, since this won't have any effect. So to do something like that, we need to copy the name. So we need to get a link to that value. So I'm going to press Ctrl C. I'm going to go to the deform amount, and I'm going to go here to hide. So I'm going to basically write a simple if statement or Boolean. So what we're going to do is use a bracket here, and we're going to copy paste the name. So if my input is not equal to 1, and close it, we basically are going to hide that value. So press apply, and my value is gone. So if I would now switch here to Look at blank, I have the deform amount. If I switch to another value, it's gone. This is something that I wanted to show you to also help building your interface, because this is quite useful to know that we can hide certain parameters if we are not using them, or if you are using a different, for example, style or type. So again, if I use this here in the disable version, so pressing apply, you will now see that this will be grayed out. And you can use this everywhere. So you could use this with other parameters as well. So again, you write a simple if statement. So if the input is equal or not equal to a certain value, we want to hide that value. And with that, I'm going to close off the video. So we're already starting to have a nice fence tool. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.